Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Ball Over Passion. I am your boy, George V underscore AFC, and we've got the gang in the house. We've got Chris, we got Kern. How you guys doing, mates? You good?
I'm
Yeah, I'm
tired,
good.
man. I'm tired. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
tired. It's been one of those, end of the season. We thought we'd give a little bit of a week of breakdown, a little bit of calm. But we're excited to talk about this, guys. We've got a lot on the deck today. It'll probably be Premier League season reviews, so we'll keep it just within the league. And we'll look kind of at Arsenal season. We'll look at the top four relegation. Championship promotions, a lot of interesting some picks there. Dajid Spence is on everyone's list, so maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
What did you just call him?
Dajid. Um, and we can also talk about the biggest winners and losers from this season. Maybe some surprise packages, people's favorite manager, people's favorite culture club. Palace, is it going to be Brentford? Will Thomas Frank, the hipster's choice? What did he do well? We'll talk all about it here. So, guys, first up on the lineup, it's got to be Arsenal. We got to talk Arsenal. Um, Guys, essentially as a review, I thought what we could do, we'll be doing our predictions for everybody that's like awaiting those and what we've discussed in the past. We'll do that on Friday. So we'll try to keep our surprise packages for that. But maybe just talking about Arsenal in the context of this season, how do you evaluate the progress that we made, if there was any, in your opinion? And what did you think the season storyline was? So I'll go first to Chris. Maybe you can answer the first one essentially, where what did you think of the storyline for the season, and did we progress really quickly?
It was so close to being redemption. So close for us to be 20th after 3 games, and then to finish top four would have been probably the perfect redemption arc. There's nothing better they could, apart from winning the league. There's probably nothing better they could have made for that Amazon documentary and just for the club in general. So that probably would have been the best. And apart, but I do think it was like, yes, we have definitely progressed. There's still things that we need to do more because obviously until you win the league, there's still more you have to do. So I do think there's a lot we can do this summer to change the team. But I do think from last year to finishing eighth and 6 points off top four to this season being so close and then finishing 2 points in the end of top four. I think the season was a success to some extent. Obviously, not getting Champions League football is a negative. Everyone said that, the players, the manager, the owner, ex-players, like all this stuff. So there are definitely improvements we could have made. But overall, I'd say it'd be a good season, especially where we were in the summer and how everybody thought the team would be in the summer and where we were after 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, well, just factually, the entire narrative was that we had a horrible summer, we had a horrible window, and Arsenal would finish outside of Europe, and that isn't a hyperbole to say. At the beginning, I think when there needs to be discussion about managing expectations, changing objectives. That seemed to be the storyline for the season. If you took a poll of about 10 Arsenal fans, how many people had us in Europe? I would say maybe a handful. How many of those had us in the Champions League? One or two. When you start looking at rivals and the overall arching of the window, what they felt this team could do at their maximum, not many people. In fact, rivals. I didn't see a single rival pip Arsenal for top four. I don't think that's hyperbole to say. I think every single rival felt that Arsenal was not a team good enough to achieve Champions League football. And so when you think about it, having within a couple points, as we did predict, we did feel that top four would be a point difference, not really a team difference. It would be settled by a couple points. And Arsenal, to the very last day of the season, were within a shout and within a chance, however unlikely it may have been, to fight for something. And I think, guys, that fighting for something was something that Arsenal fans, but also the team, hadn't done in quite a while. So it definitely put some different expectations. And I'll go to you, Curran, mate. Like, what did you feel the storyline of the season kind of worked out to, and whether or not progress was made? I know we had a little bit of a difference of opinion kind of in the aftermath, but with a week's calm, what do you feel was the storyline, but also the progress, if there was any, in your opinion, that we made this season?
I mean, look, I personally think it was a disappointment, a massive one. I think it wasn't the fact that it was. I think we've definitely made progress. I think there's progress that's been made, but like, if you look at the context of the season, that look, we had periods of games where we played very good. We had periods we played very bad, but the overarching issue is that with 10 games to go, even with 5 games to go, we were completely favourites for what we wanted to achieve this season, which was top 4. That was our season. So for me, you can't view this season as a success, but there has been a lot of progress made. We've identified where we need to improve, i.e. the striker issue needs to be solved. I think we've got an attacking line that doesn't really work in terms of what we need from it. I mean, if you looked at the Athletics in the last couple of days, they posted the pass networks for us, and you could see how small the contribution from our centre forward was. So for me, I think that's a major issue. Also, if you look at how we've progressed through this year, our line has moved considerably higher, which means that there's got to be some sort of accommodation in terms of defensive awareness. I think we've conceded more goals this year. I think we haven't been battered like the 6-7-0s or whatever you want, but there's been times where we had a 4-0 drubbing for Liverpool at Anfield, or times that we've looked defensively insecure. But for me, I think there's been days we've competed with the best teams in the league, like Manchester City at New Year's, or even Liverpool in the Carabao at Anfield, where we just dug in after going one man down. I think there was definitely views for shows and signs of improvement. I mean, we were so good at dispatching the non-top 6 teams, which we haven't been able to do even in Wenger's time. At times we were very good at looking at the teams like a Brentford or a Villa. I mean, even though we lost to Brentford the first day, but my point is that we were very, very good outside of that top 6, which we haven't been in the past. The next step now is to improve against the top 6 in this league, and I think that there's enough in the squad to show that there's an ability to go from the youngest team in the league, and with a year's experience with that backline elevated, a year's experience of playing this 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 hybrid that we've seemed to create and be settled in, just adding the correct profiles. I think there's a very much signs for optimism. But in terms of the season, look, we went out of the FA Cup in the 3rd round. The Carabao Cup, we had a good run, and the league, we just came short. And I think I can't really look at it and go, look, I personally have loved watching this team. I haven't loved watching Arsenal in a long time, but you can't sit here and say, look, oh, it's been great. It's been good.
Well, look, I think there can be some nuance. At the end of the day, even if you give an A grade to a team or to somebody, it doesn't mean that you're perfect, and it doesn't mean that you don't have criticisms that can apply. And I think this idea that 2 points separated people's wildest dreams from occurring to then it suddenly being a disappointing season is something I really push back on. You know, you have to look at the season in its broad sense. And I think you could almost split the season into 3 bookmarks for me. You essentially have September, and I really don't look at the first 3 games. We talked enough about context in terms of what you're looking at with the injuries and what we were doing. So really for me, I think you look at essentially from the beginning of the season all the way until roughly, I would say December, where there was a little bit of up and down form. There were some periods of consistency, but we had major players out, people working their way back from injury, new players being accustomed. And in that period, I would call it the workout period. And there were good times, there were bad times. They had a little bit of Palace, a little bit of Brighton, mixed in with some really great consistency. And then you approach December, where basically Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka were fit consistently. And you get from December to about March, incredible consistency. Consistency, by the way, that I think people don't talk about, which is title winning consistency. When you look at the numbers and you look at what we were doing, then from March till about the end of the season, you had some questionable coaching decision, responses to injuries. We were hit again within our starting 11, basically Thomas Partey, Kieran Tierney, requiring us to change shape and ask a different question. And we combined really poor losses with really great wins against top 4 rivals to keep us within a chance of achieving our goals. Now, does that mean it's a disappointing season? I would really disagree, because on the broad whole, from basically September to March, we were very consistent as a team. And when you look at it on kind of self-reflection, ultimately the team failed against being consistent against teams outside the top six in the back half of the season. When you're trying to look at blame, I think there is no pill, no magic pill to look at because it's within a couple points. But ultimately, for me, we weren't consistent against teams outside the top six, in the back half of the season. Of course, injuries played a role. We've talked about some backups maybe not providing the cover that they were bought with the intent to do at their time. Not all of that is their fault, but ultimately, this is something when you look at it, Thomas Partey and Kieran Tierney's injuries were the major reason that I think this team was unable to show its consistency that it did all season. And those are some big losses, and it's unacceptable to really see the mental collapse, I think, of the season. But that's despite seeing absolute clear progression. I definitely have some points that I want the transfer window to really address. And don't worry, like we'll get into the transfer stuff probably next week for you guys. Don't worry. Thank you so much for keeping with us and whatnot. But the biggest points that I wanted to address for everybody was efficiency in the final third, not just from goals, but from final action. That's something that we struggled with all season. I need to see consistent competition for second ball dominance in spite of injury in the starting 11. And we need to have a lot more technical consistency when we're facing teams away. They're clear is that this team had an A team and there was a B team. And that was something that I really don't like to see that we need to fix next season. And of course, that better verticality and our pace in possession. That was another thing. Our tempo sometimes during the season was quite slow and labored, and we relied too much on Emile Smith Rowe to really change the tempo of a game. And I don't see us having many tempo changers. And so what I'm really looking for is the big efficiency. I'm really looking for the tempo changers. Those are the primary points of when I start to look at profiles and people in general that we could recruit. Do they fix those things? Are they ball carrying progressors? Because I think that's something that really we did lack. And, Curran, you did mention how some of our defensive metrics were basically the same, if not a little bit worse. But this team's high line introduction, I talked about it on Twitter for so long. I don't understand how people don't see that as improvement. We basically went from a box defending team that used Aubameyang in transition moments and counterattacks to a team that camped out on the halfway line, looked to squeeze pressure, and essentially force opposition play to our narrative, our story. And we managed to do so with the same defensive metrics. That's improvement. Now, is it perfect? No. I think we were still looking for attacking consistency and efficiency. And when you kind of look at with, Lacazette confirming to have gone, that sparked a lot of debates. But, ultimately he's somebody that many respect for his application, but was caught between a half 9 and 10 type of position, who lacked consistency. There were some good moments, but he never achieved 15 Premier League goals. He got replaced 6 months after getting into Arsenal. And I think, whether you want to blame Mikel for not trusting him, which I think is fair, I think that was a bit of an issue for me. I felt that Eddie and Nketiah should have come in a little bit sooner. But ultimately, what you're looking at as a striker really was maybe the major difference. And we'll talk about a top four difference. But for a team that was quite clearly the youngest average starting 11 for the Premier League season by some considerable distance, Arsenal were 23 years old and change, and the next youngest people were 25 years and change as an average. That's a huge change, guys. That's 2 years of average differences. And when you look at it, our under 23s in terms of ESR, Martinelli, and Saka all had their most productive seasons. And the former two, not just in seasons, but in their entire careers. They achieved goal and assist numbers that they hadn't done in their entire careers. So when you're looking at a team that's based majorly in youngsters and they are excelling, then it's really quite clear to see that we need to recruit good experience. It isn't the youngsters, right? So for me, there's a lot to talk about in there. I think I probably would like to maybe transition into kind of the top four race. I think it's a good transition. We've looked at kind of the major issues with Arsenal, but I think for you guys, what was the biggest difference for top four? And maybe I'll go to you, Curran, if you wanted to also pop up the fact that, Arsenal essentially on XG, and if you're somebody that believes in XG and whatnot, but essentially Arsenal deserved to lose every game they did and win every game they did. They were very consistent in determining that their performances were due what they were given. And that could have meant disappointment. Sometimes it could have meant wins, but we never scammed results in a sense. But I'll lead that into you, mate. Like, what did you make of this top four race that essentially turned into us versus Spurs, and what the biggest difference were? I'll let you take it away from this table and you can describe it.
Yeah, so basically it's fairly clear. So basically for us, if you look at it, we had an XG created this season of 59.9 XG, and then if you look at the goals for, we had 61 XG, so we outperformed XG by 1 goal. You look at Tottenham, they had 65 XG, which is obviously more created, and they had 69 goals. I think that's where this race kind of was won and lost. I think by having the ability to have super efficient finishers that understood their roles and understood they knew what they needed to do. I mean, if you look at top team scorer, the 23 to 11, and the 11 is Bukayo Saka. We just depended too much on Bukayo at the end of the day, and for good reason, because he's that guy. He's very good and he's had such a great season. But the thing is when you have two hyperclinical finishes in Harry Kane and Son and Son as well, it's going to happen, and it did happen, and that's evidently where they were able to in that crucial period, that 3 games that we couldn't perform, they performed, and they had the ability. For example, that Aston Villa away game where they were struggling, and then they just score 4. They can just do that because they have those 2 guys, and yeah, I mean, they conceded less than us, they scored more than us, and at the end of the day, that's how they managed to get this going. And if you look, for example, there's all sorts of different stats. For example, the XG difference per 90 was they were better than us. They understood when we had the same amount of wins. It's just that they were able to find draws from positions that we weren't. I think we had a propensity when we went behind. It was very hard for us to get back into games, whereas they could just score 2 quite easily, just get back into it. So that was my thoughts anyway.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it really is Heung-min Son getting the Golden Boot is a major difference. And, I really push back on this. We aren't using the age thing as an excuse. I don't think you've been listening. Ultimately, it's unacceptable to collapse in the manner that we did. But I'm not going to sit there and ignore the fact that the average age of the squad is the youngest in the Premier League. And with that comes inconsistency because you are a young team. Like, those are indisputable facts. Like, for me, those are one and the same thing. And when you start to look at maybe the differences, I really don't think that 2 points, if you're really going to analyze it, is much of a difference when ultimately it wasn't just for me. Sorry, just to finish this point, Kern, but it isn't just the fact that Tottenham had scorers that were efficient. Ultimately, we had major injuries, which Tottenham, by the way, didn't have major injuries for the portion of their season. They recruited, Kuleveski, who had an impact. They had Bentancur, who recruited, but were they much different from their side? Were they able to beat low blocks that they weren't doing all season? No. Were they able to have high efficiency in their moments that they needed? Absolutely. Did Arsenal's cover that we bought actually let us keep that consistency? I don't know. And again, I do want to give a chance for, maybe Chris to explain his views, because I think we've kind of talked about it. But, this idea that Kieran Tierney and Thomas Partey were injured at that point in the season. We had to rely on Tavares and Lokonga, which, by the way, youngsters, we got all of that out of the way. We understand that they're young. We're not putting pressure on them, yada, yada, yada. But ultimately, they were bought with the intent to back up these 2 players that we've known have collected injuries. And if we were going to have a successful season, we knew there was a period, at least 5 or 6 games, that they had to step in, not only do their job, but do it well enough that we wouldn't miss their presence. That's the point of a backup. I don't think you have a backup wanting to replace somebody for more than 3 months of a season, but you do buy them in order to be able to fill in for 5 to 10 games a season and hopefully not see a drop in quality from the starting. Inevitably, you will, to a certain extent. They're different players, but you don't want to see that fall off. And I don't think we did, because we saw a huge fall off when Thomas Partey was out. And I think Kieran, who many people had issues with during the season, showed why he was so important and the options that we had. So I definitely want to give a chance for Chris. What did you think the biggest difference from top 4 was, generally speaking? And what were the ways that we could have avoided it if we could have? Or do you feel as though it was so close? Because I'm really struggling with this idea that 2 points separated us from promised land to being really poor. I'm really struggling to connect those 2 ideas.
Well, for me, um, initially, like, naturally, we shouldn't be this close, being this much younger than every other team. Like our best players are 20, 21, and every other team's best player is probably like 28, 29. So they're already at the peak of what they can do. So we're only going to get better, naturally, only going to get better next season, with every player only going to have one more year of experience, and probably all of them are pretty much having this the first time they were competing for something till the last day. So we're having a little bit more experience each and every player, and we're gonna get better. I think obviously we didn't draw. We drew three times. Two of them were back to back in October. So we pretty much drew one time versus Burnley and all season. And I think that was the difference between top four and not. We just if we were gonna lose, if we started out poorly, we were not gonna win the game. Um
Yeah.
if you start poor and concede, we didn't bounce back. We didn't come back in any game at all. Any game we were down at halftime, we lost. So yeah, so when we go down, we didn't have enough resilience in the like whenever we went down, our heads drops, and that comes with youth. And our players have been doing that for a long time. Like even before we became young, even in Wenger days, when we conceded first, our heads would drop. So I think that's just a mentality thing. And naturally, these players are young and they haven't experienced enough adversity to know what to do when they go down. Like Man City, for example, when we were 1-0 up against them, they still maintained control of the game. It was 1-1 till the 90th minute, and they were still playing like it was the first minute of the game. And that's just the difference in quality and in composure and just experience. They stay composed even in the 90th minute when it's 1-1 and you can get a goal back because they know how much time is actually left. And obviously, we lost that game to Rodri in the 93rd minute. So it's all fine margins. And I think one of the things we could have done is introduce Nketiah a lot earlier. Um, Lacazette wasn't working for a long time, and maybe introducing the fresh legs a lot earlier could have changed our season. But there's so many ifs. Like 10 of the goals we conceded out of the 48 were in the first three games.
Yeah.
So all these things, if we bought our players a bit earlier, would we have conceded 10 in the first three games?
But
Definitely
mate,
not.
would if COVID rules had been a thing, would Brentford have been played? Probably
No.
not. Like the ifs for me, the what if hypotheticals go down a drain because you could kind of do that for any point in the season, but ultimately for me, and I'll go around the table here. Essentially, what was the biggest thing that you're looking for an improvement, maybe in Mikel or the team going into next season? Because for me, the biggest thing that we need to really improve is I think the high line stuff is something that this team occurs naturally. With experience, you get an ability to play these things. It was their first year implementing it. By the way, the first year not just implementing it, but also being new players. Of our back six, how many were new to the team? Inevitably, that plays a role. When you look at it as well, I think the biggest things that we need to do is we need to recruit players that are brave enough in possession to keep those second balls up, but also away from home have somebody that's penetrated. That's a big thing. Tempo was a big issue for me in this season generally. When you look at our worst run of form, we didn't have somebody to put their foot on the ball and dictate, or was brave enough to do it consistently, particularly away from home. I think that was the biggest difference for me. And against teams that are runners in the middle of the park, we seem to get overrun because we don't have enough players brave enough between the lines to really attack players and change the tempo of a game. We rely too much on the usual suspects. They're young. It's fine. And then, by the way, I always push back because they were incredibly consistent. Our youngsters were probably the most consistent part of our team. So it's not them that I'm worried about. It's more about some of the older players being a little bit more reliable in terms of their performances and being able to supplement a bit more. I think the Kieran Tierney issue with an injury, we need to supplement a lot better. Thomas Partey, again, when he's not available, there needs to be an option that we don't see such a major drop off. Like those are major issues for me that I think we need to address. And of course, efficiency in the final third. The amount of times, guys, when we talk about, draws and turning those losses into draws, how many times do we run ourselves into a corridor in periods in the final third without efficiency or that cutting edge? Far too many to count. And so for me, we need to start recruiting experience and not youngsters necessarily, but a experienced attacker that is able to make the most out of their chances. That for me does infinite amounts to the team. It gives them infinite amounts of confidence that we've got a structure to really hold in and dig our heels in, but we need to find attackers that are consistently going to provide goal threat and some serious goal threat. And so, of course, that always points to a certain homecoming that I've been jujuing for the last, several months. But again, that's getting into transfers. And I'll just do a roundtable really, really quickly. What are the things that you want to see changed? I'll go to Chris first. From either the team or the manager that you want addressed in this transfer window.
I think Arteta needs to maintain consistency with his philosophy and what he wants to do, because sometimes I see it change from game to game. And obviously, he maintained with the 3, and at times went to a 3-1-6 build up because of Party, but he tried that too long after Party left, which hurt us. And then I think he needs to trust certain players a bit more than he did, because once he kept playing the exact same 11 week in, week out, which is beneficial, but at the same time, when there's no cup competitions, you have to change because players have to play, or once you do need them, they haven't played for a competitive game for 5 months for some of them, which is just very hurtful to the team. So I think he needs to keep a handle on the players a bit more. And I also think, like, just obviously Lacazette is gone now, Aubameyang's gone now, so we're going to see the first season in 6 years without Lacazette and Aubameyang. So it's going to be weird seeing that for the first stage. And yeah, I just think with the transfer window coming up, obviously I don't like talking about transfers, but with the transfer window coming up, I think we need to secure our backups and actually get players he wants to use, because it seemed like the ones we did, he just didn't want to use them. So actually get players he wants to use and actually get players that can keep the drop-off minimal, because when Party leaves, we completely collapse and start conceding so many goals in transition.
But mate, it's why when I look at a midfield purchase, and there's a lot of debate. We'll get into it. We'll be doing transfer windows. Don't worry, guys. I know we see it. I see everyone looking at Scamacca, Jesus. Everyone wants to get into the players. We will get there. But the biggest issue that I've got for me is what you said there about a minimal drop off, Chris, is huge, because I want to recruit a left center mid that can do the Xhaka role better if he has to, but also can replace Partey in times when he's out. And that for me is just as important. And with Mohamed El Neni securing a renewal in his contract, it makes it very unlikely that we're going to recruit more than one midfielder, in my opinion. And so that midfielder has to be dual purpose. It has to be a 6'8" that's able to fill in for Thomas when he is out, but also give us something more higher up the pitch. And there is a certain prison pending option that we need to sit down and wait. And I'm a fan that can do both roles and not only do them well, but to an excellent standard. But Curran, I'll let you finish off this little Arsenal top 4 discussion, really in general, with what do you want to see changed, in the transfer window, but maybe with just the team or Mikel in general. Like, what do you think is the next step for us?
I think the major theme is proactivity. I need to see. I feel like we've been too reactive times and have not been able to change things before it becomes too evident and becomes too late, and then it does happen. It went amazingly, and it's just too late. That's what this season boiled down to at the last little. But I think for me, if I'm gonna talk about what I want a team that is able to just be compact and rigid at times, but also have the fluidity to move forward, which we've seen times this season. But when we revert to that 3-1 build-up, and you see the transitional space being unlocked, you see games like Watford away can goal where Xhaka is striking back. You see games like Crystal Palace where we're just not able to hit people in transition because there's so much space in between the block. They're just able to hit 3 on us in quick succession, and we're out of the game. So I want to see more tactical. I want to see Mikel use this 5-sub rule like he did in the FA Cup run. I think that's going to be so crucial for next season. I just think that it was very much a case where you look at what Mikel did in the FA Cup run, it can be replicated in terms of using finishers, recruiting in capacity, take the best exploit that in the correct way. I also want to see what Mikel's attack is. I want to see what this guy does, because we've not seen an attacking purchase from him. We've seen Eddie, we've seen Willie, and I think is his only attacking purchase in terms of what he's actually bought into the club, and I think that was more to do with Edu than people let on. But I think I want to see a clear philosophy. I want to see proactivity, and I want to see that there's less stubbornness when things are going wrong. I want to see ability to basically move and be more flexible, because I feel like at times it's just.
I think it's been stubbornness from philosophy. It's been a little bit, but guys, the double of Crystal Palace and Brighton, and then your Southampton mixed in, your Newcastle with Joelinton, like those performances are the biggest next step for me. You start securing, because within that, by the way, we're talking about 10 to 12 points against mid-table teams that run us through and run us over, and whether that's between injury, but it's also not, because away those teams exploit our biggest weaknesses, and they've done it consistently. Palace, Brighton, those are teams that when I go into it, I'm nervous against, and I don't want to be nervous against those types of teams. And it's very simple to kind of go and look at
one last thing, George. But one last thing to mention is that this is the second window in a row, in the second summer in a row, that we've gone into it thinking we need replacement when Tierney and Partey out, and we need to address that this window. It has to be done. This is the second time in 2 years where it's cost us, and that's where we've lost both these last previous seasons.
It's a case of the club trying to understand that mistake, I think, and getting through that. And yeah, don't worry, mate. Like, it's not there's no digs. Don't worry about that. It is all love. Like, for me, the biggest thing is we know what we need to do now. I think there's a couple things that we need. Experience in terms of attacking efficiency. We need to recruit that. We need a little bit more in midfield in terms of running power. And what I mean by that is like ground running power, because we don't have enough of it. We need a tempo changer. We need somebody that can keep the ball, but also offer an opportunity for Partey to take a rest. And not just if he's injured, but also give the boy a rest. Like, I don't like relying on somebody for not just a 38-game season, but guys, it's a 52-game season. People keep forgetting that. We're going to be in cup competitions. We're in the Europa League. Like, you know, these are things, it's not just a 38-game season that we need. So I need running power in midfield. I need efficiency with experienced attackers. And then I think lastly, the biggest thing that I need is to recruit some more ball-carrying progressors. I think this idea that this team is technical is a fallacy. We need to increase the floor technically of this team. That means recruiting people comfortable inside and outside on both sides of the pitch. So that's a big thing about the top four. Guys, I want to transition into the biggest winners and the biggest losers. So guys in the chat, you guys let us know your favorite, your biggest winners, your biggest losers of this season. So what I mean by those things is, which is the team that underperformed the most for you? A certain Red Devil team might be big on people's lips, but who is also the team that maybe overperformed their biggest expectations? And maybe I'll go to Curran first for you, mate, just because we're talking the Red Devils, but why not? What do you believe is the biggest underperformer, which is maybe your worst of the season or the loser? And then maybe you can do a biggest winner for us. And it doesn't have to be a team. It could be a player if you really like. But yeah, I think teams are always fun.
I think obviously we're all going to say the biggest loser is the team that's performed like imposters. They're just a sad team with a sad manager and a sad outlook for the near future. I mean, it's not really.
Mate, sorry, just to really quickly interject, I cannot let it go out without a sad situation reference going into the sad commentary. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, but literally, yeah. I mean, Villa was funny, but I think there's only one. There's Man United, and we tried. I remember when I was told that there's no way anyone apart from Man United, that the top four was sealed, and that we were talking about who was getting kicked out of the top six. It was United were going to be maybe second and third. They're barely sixth. I mean, it's very evident to see why we try to tell them that you have to have a midfield that doesn't just rely on Fred and McTominay, and they didn't listen. Ronaldo is a weird signing. They bought Jadon Sancho for a right wing position. when he's a left winger, and we try to tell them that, and be like, oh no, it doesn't matter. These guys don't know what they're talking about. And then eventually, what happened? They moved into the left wing, and now they don't have a right winger. They have Elanga there. So, very sad season. Not exactly. I wish I could be happier about it, but at the end of the day, they need to see who they're recruiting. Their recruitment for next season doesn't look any better than it has. I haven't seen the link since I've left Twitter, but from when I was there, Jury and Timber, Pau Torres, these aren't names that inspire great emotion. So for me, I think that they had this period, I remember, where they had this picture of Ragnick, and it was like 17 games or something, and they had like all these easy teams. And we'll go on a massive run. He's going to be amazing. And they won. They drew so many games. They lost so many games. I remember Watford going and taking points from them at Old Trafford. Like, Old Trafford isn't Old Trafford anymore. They should have placed. It's a leaky roof with that leaks points. That's all it is now. And for over, I'd probably say, I don't want to say Palace. Everyone's going to say Palace. I think Palace is a cool story. And I don't want to say Brentford either. I mean, let's have a look at the table, because I think West Ham, actually, because West Ham had that Europa League run. I think they competed with some of the best teams in the country. They beat Liverpool at home. They've had some really good performances. For the squad that they have, which is so paper thin, that one or two injuries could literally win their season. The fact that they juggled it, still managed to get into a Europa League spot, I think that's a very decent achievement for them. I think that they thought that they would be able to do that, and with the amount of games, I remember all of us saying that the amount of games they had, they will fall away, and they might even drop into the conference or below. But they've done well. They've had some really good performances. They've developed some really nice players. Obviously, Declan Rice is someone that we all love, and Jack Bowen obviously has a Diogo Jota tendency, but he does have a good goal and assist ratio. I think that he's someone that is decent enough. Their defense is decent. I think they're a very decent season. I like, in terms of players, I actually want to point to Mark Guehi. I think people really underestimated that move. He's been so solid for them at the back. I think he's been very, very decent. And for underperformance, I think Rafa Varane. I think Rafa Varane came in with this Champions League, Varane moniker, and has not played. And when he has played, it's not been great as much as people say, oh, he's been great. He's been okay. I think him and Maguire will improve over time, but yeah, we'll see.
I mean, it's tough. Look, I'll leave the Varane comments until our prediction shows, because it kind of goes back to what we predicted down there. But I mean, in terms of under and over performance, I think really quickly, I really can't look much past Everton. Like, I really want to laugh at United, and they did underperform, make no mistake about it. But when you look at Everton, I think they were the team that underperformed the most in the league in terms of what their drop off would be with squad quality. And it was something that was really crazy. I was hoping for a relegation because I thought it would have been hilarious. But at the same token, there's no way that squad with that talent should have been anywhere near the relegation fight. But not only that, so consistently near that bottom was incredible, particularly when you looked at who they brought in, their summer as well as their January transfer window and what they were looking at. I mean, I always felt that Frank Lampard was the worst choice that they could make, but for me, Everton was the biggest underperformer. And then on overperformance for me, I think I debated between Newcastle and Brentford, and whether you want to do the Newcastle pickup from the news in terms of who their new owners are. I think Eddie Howe had done a phenomenal job. He's a very underrated manager for me in terms of a balancing type. I don't think he's particularly modern in much of what he views, but he's an excellent balancer. And he did let that team play well. But for me, I love Brentford. I love Thomas Frank. And if not for his injuries, by the way, in the season, I think Brentford are a lot higher up in the table. And in fact, when they did have their starting 11 available, they showed it. Many people don't know Josh Da Silva, one of their most important players and an ex-Arsenal Academy graduate, was out for most of the season. And when they did recruit Eriksson, they shot up the table with that link up with Ivan Toney. And of course, Mbeumo, was excellent. So for me, I'm a big fan of Brentford as a club. I think they're a very modern answer. So for me, that's probably the biggest overperformance from that side. I think player-wise, it's tough. I think, Olise excited a lot of people. Underperforming players, I think When I look at Vestergaard at Southampton, that's really, really something that, kind of strikes me. I think Vestergaard had a really good season the year before, but he's had a very poor season this season. And of course, it's really tough to look past Harry Maguire, Romelu Lukaku. Like when you look at these kind of, even Grealish, to an extent, who I think did better than Lukaku.
I mean, you can't really be an underperformer when you're in the Premier League. Let's be real. Like if when you win the league.
You can, but it's with context, I guess.
No, but
like
in context of the season, in context of like the players around, Lukaku.
He definitely didn't justify like his price tag, but I think you can't look past Lukaku. You really cannot look past if you're really looking at an underperforming player, unfortunately. But yeah, mate. And I think like the best performing player, the one that shocked me kind of the most, would probably be probably Norman for Norwich. I knew of him, but I don't think I expected him to be as good as he was. And he had a big injury, but he played really well. I didn't expect to see that from him. But generally speaking, I'd actually give the best overperformance from a player probably to us with Ramsdale. I'm not going to lie. What was coming in, I've never seen a keeper so ridiculed online. For no reason other than narrative, but to come in and be a major focus in a top 4 challenging team like that. So for me, one of the best over performances was Ramsdale, which again is probably muddied by his last 6 to 10 games that a lot of people felt, but people forget he had an injury, a hip injury in March, and I don't think he was ever fit from that. You could tell he wasn't defending his near post as well. But I think for me, I've never seen somebody go from 2 relegation scrapping teams to an important piece and cog in a dressing room and rattle so many rival fans. But Chris, I'll leave it to you, mate. Like your biggest winners, your biggest losers, could be team or player based, but let's start with the teams first.
Yeah, I think second half Newcastle was top 4 team in the league. So second half of the season, Newcastle is probably my overperforming team. Underperforming, I'll go Chelsea. Because a lot of people had them as title favourites or top 2 favourites, and they weren't even close. A lot of people even had Liverpool out the top 4. They had underperforming could be Leicester as well. They finished 9th, and a lot of people had them for top 4 as well. So I think Chelsea and Leicester underperformed. Well, obviously Chelsea finished 3rd, but they were too close to 4th for me. But they were less than 6 points ahead of Arsenal. So I think too close to 4th and 5th.
No Leeds.
Leeds is definitely up there.
Yeah, but I think injuries plagued their season though.
Yeah.
They just had no Bamford, no Phillips, no Rafinha. Their 3 biggest players were injured consistently. So yeah, and Lukaku is my player who underperformed. Because obviously Varane's easy to say, but he was injured at times, and Lukaku just had so many scandals in the season. He even wants to leave them now, apparently. So Lukaku is probably my underperforming player, and then overperforming. I predicted it with Mark Guehi. I thought he'd be a great signing. I thought Chelsea was so dumb to sell him and Tomori. And yeah, he proved that he was very good. I think obviously Gallagher was a great loan, but he's going back. Olise was a good signing. Who else?
Mitchell.
Yeah, no, Mitchell was already there though. He wasn't a signing.
No. I mean, just someone who's come through this year.
And then Declan Rice took a step up
Yep.
from last season.
He is West Ham.
He took a step up and he did very good. So yeah, I think obviously Newcastle is probably my overperforming team because the second half of the season form was elite from them. And then underperforming Chelsea. Chelsea or Leicester. I'll go Chelsea just because I think Tuchel will get sacked this year.
Yeah, and guys, it kind of leads us really into our last segment of the night, really, and that is essentially relegation. We'll talk the ups and downs of relegation. We kind of mentioned Everton for a little bit, but also, guys, the promotion in the championship. If anyone's really interested in those, and maybe we can do a reminder as well for everybody that is coming up, right? So you've got Fulham, Bournemouth, and Huddersfield. So
Nottingham Forest, bro.
Sorry, Nottingham Forest. Sorry,
Hey,
Nottingham Forest. I'm trying to keep it all in my head.
hey.
Guys, I promise you.
Colwell got owed.
Um,
So that way.
So yeah, he did. But Fulham, Bournemouth, and Forest are going to be up, which is really nice because Forest is like a club with a lot of history and
No, it's
tradition.
not, man.
which is nice.
Fulham is annoying. It's annoying. They're just the one of the
I know.
the one with the Norwiches and the West Brom, like those up and down, up and down. I need new blood. Like, just give me
I
something
think
new.
they'll be a bit different this year. Obviously, they're losing Carvalho, which is a big loss, but they've played a bit different than they had when they first came up. And obviously, Forest is my favorite team. They need to try and buy back Jed Spence, but because they're a Premier League team, I think it'll be harder to get him now. And then obviously my favorite player from the Championship, second favorite player from the Championship, Brennan Johnson is coming up, which I'm happy for. He was EFL Young Player of the Season. He was great. I think he scored 20 goals or something. And then Mitrovic scored like 40.
But
40.
he never does that. Mitrovic
43, I
always
think it
does
was.
this in like two
Yeah, he broke the
consecutive
record.
seasons. He's broken records and he's.
But he
done
broke the record. Tony broke the record last year for 31 in the
Yeah,
last
I
game.
honestly think this is the
Mitrovic
season
broke
that
his record.
Mitrovic, like, he might
Mitrovic
actually do
broke his
something.
record in 30 games. He scored like 31 goals in 30 games. So he was just insane. I don't know how
I
he did
actually
that.
do feel like Mitrovic does something this season. I think he doesn't do amazingly, but I think he has a Tony-like season where he does very, very, very decently.
No,
I don't think it's going to
so.
be.
I think he's shown us. We've seen this pattern from him. Like I think it's wonderful also. And just to quickly review, because we kind of just jumped into it, all of us, smorgasbord. But Burnley, Watford, and Norwich are going down, and they're being replaced by Fulham, Bournemouth, and Forest. So I'll go to the lads first in terms of what your favorite kind of outcome of that is. I'm not going to lie. I hate that Sean Dyche was sacked or left, and whatever you want to call it, mutual termination maybe. But the fact that he left always kind of wrote their season off from that moment for me. But I'm really glad that Burnley are gone. For me, Watford and Norwich were almost bankable relegations from the very start of the season. They're just squad quality was just never up there. But in terms of who they've been replaced with, they're actually possession-based sides, except for you've got Bournemouth with Parker, and then Fulham, who's got a really good style of play right now. And actually somebody or a team I'd really like to see Florian Balogun go into. I think he could get out there instead of Solanke. He could play that role excellently. Yeah, who's excellent. And I think Fulham have registered interest in Balogun for a while now, and not just from last season, but when he had proposals on the side for maybe re-signing or not. I think Fulham would be an excellent Premier League loan for Balogun that I would really look into. But they're being replaced by good football playing sides, I think, is the biggest benefit that I see. I think Norwich just had a really poor quality. Watford, for me, again, similar kind of story. And Burnley, I just really hate Burnley. So that's an excellent team to kind of get rid of. But they are being replaced by good footballing sides. Is there any pickups that you guys would consider between those going down from Burnley down to Watford and I guess Norwich? I mean, the biggest one is probably Tarkovsky. Off the top of my head, going on a free. That's probably the biggest pickup that you could look at. But I mean, there's some good players in there, but no one that I'm screaming my head off. Ismail Sarr, a player that I like, everyone knows. But I don't know if it's worthy right now. But
I think Sarr, McNeil, João Pedro,
Dennis,
Tarkovsky, Dennis will probably get Cornet. Will probably get like links this summer. Maybe not moves, but definitely get links.
I mean, Weghorst will leave as well. I doubt that he stays in the Championship as well, even though I don't know if he performed excellently. He had a flash in the pan.
He did.
Rubbish replacement for my boy Chris Wood.
Look. Okay, calm, both of you. But like he wasn't on it. He didn't look like himself. He had a great start, and I thought he would do well. But like I think there was a lot of other issues in that team. I think the Cornet absence and his inability to link up as well, because they started off on fire together. But like for me, if I'm looking at Burnley, I'm looking at Zach Collins. Like I think he's someone that you can really look at a young centre back. I think that he's very good. I think there's a couple of players there. I don't think there's a lot, but I think
it's weird. It's one of the most bare relegations I've looked at. I'll be honest with you. Normally, there's some really smart pickups, but for me, it's just teams of real devoid of quality here. And I'm excited. Look, Scott Parker, somebody I really rate as a manager. I like him. I do. I think a little bit of it is passion, desire. I like it. You kind of see what he's done in behind in the dressing room, but I'm excited to see him in the Premier League again with a team I think is a little bit more deserving of his philosophy. He's got them playing really well, and I think they'll be a really good addition to the Premier League. And of course, I'm not sure how Forest really react to losing essentially with their best player. In terms of Jed Spence, I think, well, debatable. He's
He
one
was
of
the
their
second
best
best player on the
players. He's
team.
one of their best players, and he's not
Yeah,
going to
they're
be there
losing.
next year.
The issue is though that for them, they're same as Fulham. Like they've both lost like big key players, and Forest have lost James Garner as well, who's going back to Man United.
Mhm.
So they need to find.
Not Zach Collins, Nathan Collins. Nathan Collins. Sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. Nathan
They
Collins.
need to find either replacements or the same players in Ghana and Jed Spence, who has a lot of big movements like Man United and Tottenham.
I think he's the hardest one to really replace, really, ultimately, is going to be him, because I don't think anyone offers the same thrust that they can really afford at their price point going into the market. Like, I don't know who they do. It's going to be a gamble.
They just get an influx of 200 million.
Well, I mean, in terms of that,
there's a few
in the sense of who can they actually target, right? Like, I mean, Brooke Norton-Cuffy in theory would do excellent, but I want him with us. But I don't see very many value plays in the market for right back. Very difficult position to really do, especially for Forest coming in. So, interesting kind of talking points there. I'll definitely go around the table in terms of what you guys are most excited for. And maybe the biggest surprise of that relegation promotion. So I'll go to Curran first. What are you most excited for in teams coming up? And what was the most surprising in the relegation fight for you, quickly?
I think the most surprising was probably Brentford and them just being nowhere near. I mean, I thought they wouldn't be in it, but the fact that they were so far away from it, I think spoke volumes about how Thomas Frank set up. I think that was the most surprising thing, because everyone sort of, I remember some people saying they finished bottom. I think that there's really a sense for celebration for them, because they weren't even involved. I think this is their Sheffield United season or the Wall season. They need to keep this up, keep that philosophy going. I think obviously Everton was a massive shock. I think Leeds was a pretty big shock. I think Villa not being in it was a bit of a shock, to be honest. I think that they recruited badly, and I was expecting them to finish a bit low. I think Gerrard managed to sort of stumble around some getting Coutinho in and really setting up that Christmas tree block and getting them in a bit better shape. But there's evidence that team is very easy to get at as well. In terms of what I'm most excited about, in terms of the teams that are coming up, I like Brennan Johnson a lot. I think that he's a very good player. I think that he's someone that can be, I don't know if he stays there at Nottingham Forest, but if he does stay there, he's someone that I do think that will be an interesting player to watch. I also think that if you look at someone like Mitrovic, will be such an interesting season for him. I think that he will have either a great season or a rubbish season. It's not going to be a very much a mid-season. I think there's also opportunities for teams to, as George mentioned, pickups. So, for example, let me think. I mean, I someone like a Broha. I don't know if he goes back to Chelsea. Can someone coming up pick him up as a for a loan, or maybe even to sign him or something like this? Like these kinds of players who kind of on the outskirts to the top 6 teams. Can you pick up someone smart and really galvanize your squad and push it forward into getting that?
Tuchel's inability to incorporate academy graduates means Colwell will always be somebody of interest, which I don't understand why. The boy is a very good center back and they could use with him. But I mean, he's, things like that. Chelsea is always a good graveyard for people to look at because they never use their own stars and their gems. But
it's not just Chelsea, but the issue is players on the fringes of these top 6 sides. There are deals to be done. It's not a specific gig at Chelsea. Like for example, James Garner for Nottingham Forest has been great, or these kinds of players. Like these are players that are
There is
available.
opportunities in the market. The one thing I will say, this transfer window has some of the most intriguing market opportunities, not just, on team fringes of the top six, but just in general. You look at your Basumas, your Awars, your kind of players in the last year of their contracts, your Gnabry's, your Sterlings. Like there's a lot of roadmaps that need to be closed, some answers that need to be told. We just had Chouameni sold for the big 100 mil.
Oh, really?
Mbappe saga. Yep. Going to
That
Real
got
Madrid.
done. Okay, cool.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities in the market. I don't want to get too much into it. I want to give Chris kind of the last word on his biggest surprises, the best pickups of relegation and promotion.
Oh, Nick Pope as well. Someone that could get picked up. I forgot to mention Nick Pope as well.
I think Fabio Carvalho is a great pickup for Liverpool. Whether he plays false nine or central midfield or on the wing, remains to be known. But he's a very good option for Liverpool. He was very good in the Championship, especially at the end of the season, picking up some good goals. Obviously, Brennan Johnson will be very good, I think. Right wing, striker, left wing, he's been very good. Nottingham Forest are also losing Keenan Davis, who I forgot about, who's going back to Villa. So that's 3 loans who are.
I'm telling you, mate. I think they're not going to be able to replicate
their
this
season.
season.
Well, the thing is, we just don't know who they signed, so can't be too confident there yet. And for me, Bournemouth are a good team, but they just had certain games where they just drew, or gave easy points away. So with the teams coming up, we just don't know how they'll spend their money, because you do get a lot of reward money, and we always see the Championship teams come up and spend a lot, especially Norwich. So they do get like 100, 200 million reward money. So they will spend. Where they spend is the big issue for them. And if Nottingham Forest manage to get Jed Spence, great news for them. If they don't, they'll be in trouble probably. But I hope Brennan gets picked up by a bigger team. If not, I hope they get a right back to help him out. That's my. And then obviously Norwich. I think anybody in their right mind knew they were going down and were going to finish 20th. That was confirmed a long time ago. And then on the last day, Leeds pipped to Everton. So Leeds stayed up. No, Everton didn't go down. Burnley went down. So yeah, Burnley. They deserve to go down after the way they played all season. They were really poor. And then I think Dyche left just so he doesn't have a relegation on his record. Pretty much. That's why I think he left. So yeah, they've got big things to do this summer, as well as other teams. But just the level of the Prem is rising so high that these Championship teams need to do big things to stay in it and not go straight back down like Norwich.
Yeah, no, and look, ultimately, season with a lot of storylines that are being closed, and we won't keep you guys here too long. We thought we'd just give you a little hour, just to review kind of the season, and we've got some things to promo about things coming up, things to look forward to. Of course, everybody's asking us transfer questions. We will get into those. That's probably a next week and the next couple week things. We've got a big video on Friday, kind of just reviewing the Champions League final for a bit, but then also a really fun show, just interactive, looking back our predictions, what we did well, what we got right, what we got wrong. A big one's going to be Leeds. I know that for me. A big one's even Leicester as well. In terms of the biggest jumps, Everton as well, another one. But we will definitely be doing a show that's a little bit more fun-hearted on Friday. And then next week, we're going to start getting into the transfers. Another show to look up to is we're going to be doing an academy breakdown once again. Really relevant because Kevin Betsy and Dan Michichi have left the club, which are big voids. It's a little bit of a bittersweet, but you know what? This is good. When your academy level coaches do leave for bigger opportunities, it means that you've developed and you promote yourself as an environment to welcome coaches to want to advance, not just the academy, but also themselves. So an academy special will be in the pipeline, as well as what we might need in the transfer window. We'll break down our issues a little bit more, maybe get a little bit more specific about all of our wants and unwants. But thank you so much for sticking in, guys. We appreciate everyone interacting in the comments. Again, thank you for sticking with us. Again, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications to know when we do upload. You can find us at BoP Footy on Twitter. Of course, you can find us on our socials, which are right down below, but at GeorgeV_AFC. Current mate, where can they find you? on
But
here.
they can't anymore. They can't find me anymore. I'm off, lads. I haven't seen any of Fabrizio's tweets. I don't know what. I've heard Chumani's gone to Belgrade. I have no idea what's going on. The only connection I have to football is Football Manager right now. I just don't like Twitter, so I'm going to stay off Twitter. You can find me here. Just going to be with the boys. I'm going to take that out because it's been there in my description for a while. But yeah, no more Twitter for me. You can find me at BoP Footy. That's where you can find me.
There you go. I was dying to make that little prelude because we had to address the elephant in the room. People are like, "Did he leave? Did he go?" No, he's here. He'll be here and he'll stay here. So don't worry, everybody. And then Chris, mate, where can they find you?
Yeah, CK Football. I don't talk about football that much, but my name is CK Football on Twitter.
Absolutely. And so, guys, again, thank you so much with us. Guys, in the comments, let us know what kind of content you'd like us to upload kind of in the future now with the summer. Of course, don't worry. The transfer targets, we will be talking about them. That will inevitably happen. But if there's any content that you guys are interested in, we'll do an update on our academy. Hopefully, we can do an update as well on our hierarchy in the back. We might see some changes now with Betsy and Damachichi gone. So it might rejig some things in the background that we could update. But if you guys have any topics you want us to dissect and break down, please let us know. And of course, any constructive criticism that we do have. But we thank you guys for, sticking with us. Thank you so much to all the engagement. And also, just in general.
No. Don't bring that.
Are we getting into basketball? I don't know about that.
They're not going to win.
But thank you so much for everybody sticking with us. Again, I just wanted to emphasize the engagement and the help that you guys have made the channel grow. We're not stopping. We're going to keep going. We're going to actually ramp up some content, and so we hope that you guys enjoy it. Just let us know what you guys want to see, and we're going to try to cater to you, the views, because we know we care about you guys. So thank you so much for sticking with us. So I'm going to sign off, and we'll probably catch you guys on Friday around 8 p.m. UK time for that, predictions review and UCL review. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye now.